I want to show you 3 of the easiest subject to paint. As a beginner painter, I remember being very excited and inspired by the new art supplies that I received and wanting to paint a beautiful painting. I also remember finding it very hard, harder than I thought, and being disappointed with the result. And that's because I chose a really hard first thing to paint. That could be avoided. As a complete beginner in painting, it's really important to accumulate successes and create positive experiences when we first paint our first paintings, so that we get excited to paint more and more complex things as we build up confidence. So in the video, I'm gonna touch on the harder things to avoid in choosing a reference photo, share with you the 3 easiest things to paint to set you up for success with footage of me painting them and the final results, showing you how easy it is. At the very end of the video, I'll share with you the perfect, easiest tutorial for you to get a point of inspiration. And also, I have a special announcement for people that already follow my art vlogs, so stay tuned for that. All right, things to avoid when choosing a reference photo or starting a first project as a beginner. Portraits, obviously. I find portraits to be the most challenging things to get right. You want a likeness, rendering the skin and all that, the hair. It's a little bit tricky, so avoid that. Animals can be tricky as well, the fur and the feathers. Architecture could be hard as well, depending on the reference photo. If it's just a small shack in the background of a beautiful landscape, easy, you can do that as a beginner. But if it's more like a cityscape with complex buildings overlapping each other, getting things to be straight and also getting that perspective could be hard. So as a first-time painter, I would avoid that, at least for the first few paintings that you create, you know? Not to say that you can't paint cityscapes as a beginner, but for the first couple paintings, I would stick to the easiest things possible to get a beautiful result. One of the easiest things to paint are landscapes, but not just any landscapes, because some landscapes with a lot of texture, like forests and foliage, could be overwhelming as a beginner to render everything, and it takes a lot of work to really get that texture right, especially if you want a realistic look. You don't need to go for that. It could be more abstracted and stylized, but as a beginner, a lot of foliage could be too much sensory overload. An alternative for that is night sceneries. Night sceneries can be really beautiful. There's often very colorful skies, sunsets, and all that. And more specifically, silhouettes. If you include, let's say, a couple holding hands, any subject matter that could be a black silhouette within your skyline is going to be so efficient, really beautiful, and not that hard to do. It could be a single beautiful tree that could look very dramatic. It could be a tree line on a beautiful, colorful sky. Those are probably the easiest to render as a first-time painter. This way you can focus on having fun with playing with colors in the sky to render a beautiful sunset with pinks, oranges, yellows. But you can also have more complex figures and that shadow outline. It could be a couple, it could be an animal like an owl or a wolf. In the past, I've done a bear outlined with like the northern lights as the sky in oil pastel. That was really nice. If you go for a more specific silhouette like that, obviously it's a little bit more challenging, but I feel like it's a really good challenge as a beginner. You might have to work a little harder or take more time to create a sketch of the silhouette, but it's easily done with pencil and eraser with a bit of patience. If you're not super confident or you don't have the patience to try and get your silhouette right, you can always trace. And once you have your sketch, you can transfer it over on your canvas, and then everything has to be nicely done in black with a really clean edge, but you don't have to worry about rendering fur or features or 3D elements. I find that night sceneries and landscapes give a big impact, a big payoff, and it's really fun as a beginner to get such a great result, but having a fun experience while doing it. The second type of paintings that are really easy to do are ocean waves and horizons, like this one and that one. Stick with me. I know it might seem like it's hard, but it's really not that hard. It kind of creates itself and you get a really big, beautiful impact. Like I've done two of these that are very similar. All you gotta do is play around with shades of blue and green and create different planes. So you've got the sky, which is a band, and the sea, right? So far it's pretty easy. The sky goes from more saturated to white. And then when it comes to the sea, you just create bands of blue, different shades of blue, going a bit darker at the horizon to get that impact. And then you can add a little bit of green towards the bottom or lighter shades of blue towards the bottom. And once the main planes are completed, all you have to do is take a palette knife with some white and horizontally create blobs of waves. And the most effective way to do that is to keep everything that's in the horizon like little dots and very minimal. It's gonna give that feeling of perspective, and whatever's at the bottom, you can go bolder with bigger waves. And as the viewer, it's really gonna register as a beautiful ocean seascape with waves. You can push it a bit more by adding a mountain range in the horizon, a couple birds, but you know, the result is beautiful, the experience is easy and fun, and it builds up that confidence to go a little bit more complicated. You can put a beach if you want, you can add more complex waves if you feel like you're up for it, but you don't really have to. It could be more complex like this one, or really, really easy and breezy like this one. And obviously it's good to keep in mind that whatever subject or reference photo we have, we can make it as complex and hyper realistic as we want as a painter, or as simplified and simple as we want as well. A landscape with different planes, a lot of foliage and trees and things could be rendered in a more simplified way with blocks of colors and a focal point, and taking out some trees, a lot of trees if we want to, leaving just one or two elements in the landscape. So it can always be tweaked either way. What I'm giving you here is the tools and the knowledge to pick the right reference photo for the easiest project possible. Another fun thing to do as a beginner are florals. For me personally, when I paint florals, I like to stylize them and paint them in a non-realistic way, in a more abstract, delicate way. I'm going to show you examples, but as a reference photo, I would advise to try to pick a single flower, because bouquets of flowers, as beautiful as they are, they could be very overwhelming as a beginner when there's too many things going on. I remember feeling like, how am I gonna do this? I would get discouraged and confused. The paint would get muddy as I was working through it. It's a lot easier to focus on one element and make it big and bold and beautiful. There's so many ways to make it easy to render florals. One of the ways is to use a palette knife and just build up the flower petals with a palette knife, letting the paint mix together and having the paint very thick on the canvas. It can be really nice, luscious, especially with a giant flower on a canvas. I've done a couple of them. I've had a lot of fun with it. You can play around with the background, trying different color schemes with the background as well. But my favorite way to create gentle, beautiful florals is probably with ink. Using a nice quality watercolor paper, some black china ink, and some nice different shaped of calligraphy paint brushes, you can get really beautiful results. And again, here the point is not to render anything remotely realistic. It's more like an abstracted version of florals. I I've created many of them on the channel. You can look up for ink florals within my channel and you'll find them. It's so much fun to see the pool of ink go into the water and see all the patterns that it gives by itself. You don't really have to work it. You just create a shape of water. You plop some ink in there, you let it do its thing, and then you swirl it around a little bit, let it dry. It's nice to build up the different shades of gray though. So I would probably go as a first layer of pale, let it dry, work on maybe multiple at a time, like have 3 started. You start working on one, let it dry, go on the other one, and then you let it fully dry to get like a lighter shade of gray. You go and you build up that pigment to a darker shade, and it creates beautiful flower petal transparencies just by using ink. You can obviously use watercolor with the same effect, but I kind of like the classic look of a monochromatic floral, maybe just red or black. I just like it. As a complete beginner, or if you're doubting yourself as a painter and you haven't gotten great results for a while because you're in an exploration phase, pick projects that set you up for success and a pleasurable experience to build your confidence back and have fun playing with color, because the point of it is to be enjoyable. Now, for my little announcement, I'm releasing a mini series of paintings. Some of them are right here in the back. There'll be a couple more. So it's a very small series of landscapes, seascapes. The link is below. Just click the link and go look at the paintings. I'm trying to keep the prices as low as possible. Delivery, shipping will be included. Shipping costs so much. Sometimes the shipping of a large canvas could be more expensive than the canvas itself. So I've included in the price shipping. It's all included. No tax, no shipping. So click the link, go look at the paintings and share it with your friends if you think that someone could like them. And if you want some inspiration on the easiest, most beautiful sunset, here's a tutorial just for you. Go watch it. I'll see you very soon. Thank you so much for watching.